And we're live, sir. Live on Smarter San Diego. Steve Ploetz is in the house.
In the house, in my house. How are you?
Are you in your house or are you in your New York apartment there? You're pretty vertical.
Doesn't it feel like it for redid the office here, moved stuff around, put it up, slammed it all up against the wall.
His sleeping cot is right above the highest shelf there. He has to climb up to it.
I'm sitting in bed right here. This is about all I need. 525 square feet. Just give me probably less than that.
We're like 25 square feet.
Give me access to contracts, MLS, and I'll pull some comps and send you some contracts. Huh? Let's do a deal.
Let's go. All right, brother. It's great to have you. Hey, this is a crazy real estate market right now. Today we're going to talk about, I think the hottest topic for most buyers and that most buyers are sort of wrestling with is, should I renew my lease? Should I wait, this out? It's pretty crazy. I've tried to put some offers in. I'm not getting anywhere. Is this too hard? Here I am going out of my way to make great offers and no one seems to care. So is it time to buy or wait? That's going to be our big number one topic today. We'll also talk about the election, potential implications there for residential real estate. And looking specifically at San Diego County, where are some good investments? Are there bad investment areas that we should be watching out for? That's where we're going to count on your expertise, sir. So
I like it.
First question, should I buy right now or is it time to wait?
And you're an always and never kind of guy. You like definitive, you don't like wishy-washy, you don't like me spending a lot of time in the gray area. And I'll spend a little bit of time in the gray area, which is it depends. It depends on what you personally are doing and what your circumstances are. If you're recently married or pregnant and just about to have a kid or are buying a place that is a long-term, hey, our plan is to buy and hold, absolutely great time to buy. If you have decided that you want to really make money flipping homes and you've decided, hey, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into the market, I'm going to chase after property in Lakeside and I'm going to flip it because that's the way that I can make hundreds of thousands of dollars and there's a shortcut to success and screw this whole idea of retiring at 65, I want to retire at 35, then I would say, I'm not so sure. Here's what let's look at.
Let me decode that for everyone who doesn't speak Steve. Hold on a second. So what he said there in the very long-winded fashion was, my question was, should I buy or should I wait? And he basically said you should wait because the whole point behind that question is, hey, is this a temporary sort of spike in demand and prices? Or, is this just going to be the new par for the course for San Diego? Obviously, COVID had something to do with this, and we all hope that COVID doesn't last forever. So I can understand why you would say, yeah, it might make sense to wait. You prefaced his disclaimer was, if you have circumstantial reasons or long-term outlook, then yes, you can pull the trigger anytime.
I like it because you pinned me down. I'm not sure that this is, so I am an amateur investor in terms of, I have a few small rentals locally in San Diego along with a primary residence. And I look at, is it something that would I buy right now? And absolutely, if the deal was right. And from an investment standpoint, there's like where you're renting the property out, there's a little more fear that goes involved just because, hey, maybe you get somebody's security deposit and first month's rent, but then they can't pay anymore. And what can you do? Basically nothing, although they are lifting the moratorium come September 1st and the courts are opening up. And here's what I will say. There are numerous cases. I have them, probably most realtors have them, of representing a seller and there is 5 offers that were in on it. Before you and I went live here, we were bullshitting a little bit and you talked a little bit about a buyer that you're representing where very strong buyer in Lakeside for $750,000. You guys came in at us and didn't get it.
Yeah.
And to me, here's what that means is anytime I hear these situations where people say, hey, we got 7 offers in on the property, fantastic. To me, what I hear is that means 6 people didn't get it and are still out in that market and they're still looking for a home. And so the next home that gets on that market, those 6 are probably going to scurry on over and at least look at it. So will the market change? Yes, absolutely. Eventually, there's always change coming. That's inevitable. However, in order for there to be a significant change, supply demand stuff, we need a lot more homes to come on the market. We need at least 6 more in Lakeside to eat up those other buyers, or we need those buyers to go away, that we need 5 of them to say, you know what, this market is too crazy, or I've just gotten laid off, or hey, lending has become too constrictive and I can't get a loan. We need that evening out. So what could that be? A variety of different things. And I know
Let me ask you about that.
Okay.
Let me specifically ask you about that because do you have sellers who are saying, we're waiting until coronavirus, or we're waiting until the election, we're just going to sit tight, we're not doing anything, we're hunkering down?
Such a great question.
That's what we need to know.
I mean, I think I heard Howard Stern say that the best interviewer is somebody that interrupts, and no bullshit, that's what you're so good at. Pinning Steve down and being like, hey, let me decode what Steve is really saying here. In March, yes, I did. I had sellers that thought, hey, nobody knows what this looks like, let's hold off. And what we saw with COVID is that, before COVID, crazy demand, very low supply, there was the thought that all this is going to happen and demand is just going to go away and supply is going to increase. And instead, what we saw back then was that it kind of affected both sides equally. That as many buyers that were like, not so sure, let me wait, there were the same number of sellers that had the same concern and uncertainty. Now, I would say for us, we're not experiencing the sellers that are like, I want to wait this out, I want to see what happens. They feel like our recommendation to most sellers is, I can't tell you what it looks like in 6 months, let alone 6 weeks. Do it now, because right now there are 7 buyers that are looking for one house in Lakeside. And no disrespect to Lakeside, I love Lakeside, but Lakeside is not. There's some more expensive, more affluent, my opinion, better value in San Diego County. Lakeside, I would put in the top 6,000 communities of
smoking like a true North County coastal realtor. So yeah, I mean, I've only been to Lakeside a few times. We shot an episode of Win This Listing there. It was actually very touching.
We shot some guns, but you shot an episode. Keep going.
Yeah, we shot an episode. Yeah, it was actually very touching. It never made it to air, unfortunately, but it was a really cool situation. Really helped the family out. That was probably my first trip out there, and I think I've been there maybe once or twice since. So I can't say a whole lot. I do think there is more value, better value. But in a market like this, a lot of people are just looking for the right house. A couple things that are going on. Number one, we don't have the same traffic issues that we're used to having. And I hope that's permanent. I really hope that the work from home movement helps give us a push for a few years on traffic while San Diego continues to grow, where we can kind of go, traffic's not that bad. I can get anywhere in 20 minutes. If there's no traffic in San Diego, you can get anywhere in 20 minutes. But when there's traffic, it can be brutal for people. And I think it's also discouraging to the soul, just in general. My wife and I sing a song whenever we're stuck in traffic a lot, and we stuck at red lights. I sitting at red lights all day long, stealing a piece of my soul, because it's we had to come up with a way to be jolly about it, and it sucks. So with that out of the way, people aren't as concerned about it as they normally would be. People are looking for the right house. They're spending more time in their house. They realize that that's probably what the future holds. A lot of people working from home. I'm working from home right now. You're working from home right now. And I don't see that changing for me. This has been dramatically more efficient for me. So, I think that's happening with a lot of people. So they're looking for the right house. Location remember location, the rules of real estate? Location. That's kind of gone out the window. Not for everybody, but for a lot of people it has. A lot more people looking at Marietta. I don't know if if Anna has been driving up to Marietta and Temecula more often than normal, but I know a lot of buyers agents who have.
Absolutely.
And,
and to that point, I think it's a very astute point that location is changing a bit, because I think our definition of home is changing a bit. There is the feeling like, if we're circling the wagons, if I'm going to shelter in place, if this is the new normal, which is, hey, maybe we're not sheltering in place and wearing a mask in a year, but we're certainly going to be more cognizant about learning the things that I can do from home. If I'm going to spend more time at home, then let me buy a home that meets my needs. And maybe I'm not going to be walking about the community as much. So let me find that big house. And absolutely, people are expanding their search area into, the banana belts, like Lakeside, glorious, beautiful. I promise I won't pick on Lakeside anymore. I live in
You're
Vista.
gonna get so much hate mail from people with big trucks and guns, man. You're screwed. So I love Lakeside, by the way. So, you know, and you're not only has it changed a little bit, it's changed a lot, sir. I mean, a tremendous amount. I'm seeing a lot more people go to Menifee, Marietta, Temecula, Winchester. A lot of people looking in Canyon Lake, Lake Elsinore. People are going really far away because if all of a sudden you find out, Steve, that you know what, your job allows you to work from home, the whole world opens up. This is what started. This is also part of the reason.
Protecting our families. I mean, we're going to go back to school eventually, but I've had a few clients that have said, "Hey, we're paying big Mellorues to have our kids in the best schools. That's why we made the move." Now they're all online. So no disrespect, I'm sure the teachers are still a little bit better in our Mellorues community, but they can't be that much better. We don't have the resources. We're all sitting in front of a Zoom call and
Right.
doing FaceTimes. So there is that element of maybe what's important to us as a family is changing.
It is, and it's a lot. That's the thing. It's not a small shift, it's a giant one. And a lot of that has, you know, there's also, we're seeing the effect. We kind of forget because we're in our own San Diego bubble, the effect that's taking place in other markets. Because people in San Francisco and LA and other areas of California are also getting the same news. Hey, you can work from home. You're green lit. And they're going, okay, why am I paying these prices to live up here in cold ass California when I can go down to San Diego where it's gorgeous all the time and buy more house for less money? So people, that's part of the reason that we have a problem right now. And there was actually a story that was on TV. My buddy Gary Kent was actually interviewed for this. It was his client who relocated from San Francisco, tech job, both tech job, husband and wife, moved to San Diego, bought a house that I would consider to be very high on the price scale. To them was a smoking deal. It was 50% off. So we also have that going on top of all the issues with there also being a lot of sellers who, and the reason I asked you this question is because I know of a couple myself. Obviously, I don't work with sellers. I work with buyers, mostly VA buyers. That's my specialty. But in my world, I know of a couple people who are just totally frozen. They were planning on selling and buying, and they're just like completely frozen until COVID's okay. I don't even know what that means or if we'll ever get there. But I know there's got to be more people who are thinking that could be part of our inventory issue. But on top of that, you know, what's really happening, and this is, if you look in the New York marketplace or some of the big metro marketplaces, particularly New York, I think is a good one for this type of information. There is a new wave of demand that is a macro thing that's taking place, sort of an untold, untalked about. It's not a movement that people are buying into. It's something that people are doing in mass, looking for compound. Everyone wants to live in a compound, a secluded compound. So the idea of city living, New York City is screwed. If you look at the data there, people are fleeing apartments. They're getting out. They're not paying rent. They're already gone. They're looking to get out. The Hamptons has just exploded. All of the suburban areas in New York have exploded since COVID. No one wants to live in the city anymore. Everyone's going to be telecommuting. Everyone wants to live in a compound. And that's what I'm seeing. A lot of my buyers right now who are in serious, competition and having trouble finding places, they want that big house with a pool and a yard and big enough for their family to grow into it. They're looking for an estate. And we're seeing this also happen, Steve, in Missouri, where I visited recently, my family there. You're seeing the houses that have 5-acre lots and stuff like that, which it's kind of unheard of here. But there, in the country, you see that a lot. A subdivision is like 5-acre lots, sometimes 2-acre lots or whatever. But you see those particular properties are selling like hotcakes for like $400,000 or $500,000 in Missouri. So,
and to your point, it's making people recognize that not only location of like Encinitas versus Lakeside not being as important, but so we have an admin on our team. We're a small team, and the admin does everything from home. He's actually talked about, hey, I could move to Ohio and I could still do this. And I mean, I would still be being paid on California prices to administer and help with the transaction. But what does it matter what time zone I'm in? I think that if there are any benefits whatsoever to COVID, it opens up opportunity of where you need to be. And for so long, people have felt like, hey, I need to be within a 30, 40-minute commute. You and I did a segment, it's probably been a year ago, in terms of somebody that asked a question about purchasing in South Riverside County versus and getting a nice house versus getting a townhome or something in North County or further down, because you go to Poway and 500,000 gets you a condo, and 500,000 in Murrieta Menifee gets you a nice house. Now I feel like what I'm starting to see with the people that I'm interacting with is now they're commuting even less. They're going once or twice a week. The commute isn't nearly as bad, and it's making them change their thought of, maybe I don't want to be squished up in some 40-unit complex next to people above me, below me, beside me, when I can have something a little further away and have my own yard and have my own space.
That's where it's at. In my opinion, that's exactly what's happening here. And it's really interesting to watch it take place, because in that segment that you talked about, by the way, we still get comments on that on a regular basis. That come in. People, I think we were both not negative, but we were kind of poo-pooing it. And for me, I was mostly poo-pooing it because of the traffic, which makes me want to blow my brains out. And I really can't handle it. I can't hang, not even one day, much less every day. So I'm super biased to not having a commute. But to your point, one of my processors just moved to Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
And that was her that's where she's from. Her family's there, things like that. And unfortunate circumstances caused her to need to go there, but she was able to do it, and it's no problem. She can absolutely work from there. She's 3 hours ahead of us, but she's absolutely working from there from a sick high rise in Buckhead. If you don't know the Atlanta area, Buckhead is pretty sweet. And she's like, yeah, I'm totally good to go here in this place. So I think there are things, and also my assistant works from her house in Julian. So that is something that in, I think, certain industries was already existing a little bit, beforehand, which now is going to become a big deal. So now it becomes all about the house. Remember, it used to be location, and that was, okay, where's good real estate? As you mentioned, Encinitas better than Lakeside or whatever. Okay, you can tell just by saying those two names, but now it's more about the house. And for people who might be buying with that certain budget, let's say 800,000 in Encinitas versus Lakeside, guess what? You can get a compound in Lakeside. You're going to get an apartment or a condo in Encinitas for 800 grand. So now that's where people are weighing. They're saying, but that's the place I want to be in.
Right.
It's not about where I want to be. It's more about that's the home I want to live in, because there's this reach for the family compound, the estate, a little bit more sort of sectioning ourselves off so we can be sort of self-sustained from everyone else. I don't know if this is a great thing spiritually for us as human beings, but I do know that it's a massive movement that's happening that no one's talking about. So it's something that's sort of reactionary. It's something that's built into our DNA as part of our survival instinct. We as a whole are doing this en masse right now. And it's been going on for the last few months, and it's really, really picking up steam.
Well, and I think that, to your point, there's been a lot of discussion about, like, when you look at humanity and how it started, how people came together in groups and tribes, and hey, let's protect each other, and we can come together. And I feel like now a little bit of what the feel is I want to be plugged into a community, but I don't want you in my space, because you might have the EBGBs and who knows what's going on. And let me have my space. Let me put up some walls and let me create some division around me. And I think that that's really what's also contributing to this movement, is no matter what's happening in our world, we all kind of feel like, hey, at least I can go home and I can shut the door and I can close the gate and I can get away from there's so much noise right now. I mean, and I realize that we're going into an election, and there's political unrest, and there's a variety of different things going on. But I feel like between COVID blowing up news and election and racial injustice and all of these things that are just constantly around us, and social media always makes it feel like it's right on top of us all the time. I think the need for people to get some peace is really at a forefront. And for me, at least, I'm not finding a lot of peace in a downtown high rise. I'm going to find more peace at a $750,000 home in Lakeside, honestly. So
the search for peace. So let me answer the question now that we have Steve answers. Should I buy or should I wait? I will tell you this. Waiting is a expensive roll of the dice with real estate. I mean, that's been proven over the last 10 years, as we've seen prices just climb higher and higher and higher. And everyone who has chosen to wait in the past decade has cost themselves a lot of money. Steve, I talked to a new client who is going to actually be, buying a house. He's been renting the last 3 years, sold his home 3 years ago, trying to time the market. Has been renting for 3 years, missed out on tons of gains, flushed a bunch of money down the toilet. So waiting is one of those things that's expensive because you don't get to take advantage of the 3 benefits of home ownership. And those 3 benefits are things that you do not get when you rent. You don't get any principal pay down, you don't get any tax deduction on interest, and you don't get any appreciation opportunity. Those are things that you only get when you own. And so when you have time in the saddle, if you will, time that you own, the longer time frame that you own, the better chance you have to do well with your real estate. That's the hard part for me about waiting is I want to get that clock ticking. If I'm looking to buy a house for the first time or trade out or whatever, I want to get the clock ticking on my new purchase because I know that all I need is time to win. I don't have to be smart. I don't have to be savvy. I don't have to time anything perfectly. All I need is to have that time in the home, and it's going to work out for me. So I think it makes sense to buy if you can. It's very competitive. So if you want to get in that saddle, put your armor on, grab your lance and your mason chain, and let's get in there and get it figured out. But know that it's not going to be easy because the secret's out. Okay. And Steve, we talked about this like 6 years ago or something on the radio, I believe. The secret was coming out with regard to San Diego real estate. And it is now out. Everyone in California knows. Everyone across the country knows about it. International people are coming and putting money in here. The secret is out, and it's never going to go back into the bottle. The genie's out of there. So speaking of, you sort of segued us nicely to this. So the election have any implications on residential real estate? I think the obvious answer would be yes, but how?
Yeah, I think it's a great point in that. So last time when it was Hillary v. Donald Trump, there was a lot of speculation about what was going to happen in the stock market. And the speculation was that if Hillary got elected, that was the expected, that the market was going to increase, and that if Trump got elected, that was the unexpected, and the market would respond by dropping. And that didn't happen. So there's a lot that kind of remains to be seen, but election years tend to be strong. And obviously that we're talking more stock market, but all these markets are related. And when it comes to the residential real estate side, so much of this is pushed by interest rates. And I mean, I'm sure that you have experienced, Derrick, on your side, just rates drop and drop and drop. I know they've crept a tiny little bit back up. My understanding is that the most recent for refinances, that fee that they were going to put in there, they put it in briefly, and now it's gone away until the end of the year, and then they're going to bring it back December or January or something like that. My expectation is that's going to bring a lot of rush to it of people feeling like, hey, if we're going to do something, let's do it now. My opinion on no matter who gets elected, nobody wants to come in and see a significant change for the bad. Nobody wants to come in and raise interest rates. Nobody wants to come in and have the stock market all of a sudden turn significantly. And I think that no matter what we as a society feel about the president, when we look at the economy and what's happening, the economy is strong. And I mean, yes, COVID has shown up and has hurt employment, those types of things, but stock market is very strong. Wages are good. There's a lot of strength in our economy. And so purely looking at the economy side, whether Trump gets reelected or Biden comes in, neither man wants to make some significant change that is all of a sudden going to impact that in a great way. So will there be an impact? Yes. How is that impact going to be? I think that becomes a little bit more, it's a little harder to see. Looking at supply demand, we still have a lot of demand. I think a lot of that demand is related to interest rates. If we start to see some kind of significant change in the interest rates, then I think we will see that demand come down. I also think that there's a demographic of seller who feels like if one party gets elected, that all of a sudden there's going to be, hey, the world is changing. Let's liquidate assets and let's sell our property and let's put the money in safe stuff.
Well, I think something that we can't forget though, with regard to that, is that it's not even necessarily, hey, who's going to be a better president for the stock market or for real estate? That almost doesn't matter. And there's really almost no way to know. The conventional wisdom is that Trump will be a great president for the stock market. Stock market's done really well under him. Stock market did really well under Obama too. It's like there's a little bit of there's part of the cycle, the cyclical nature of it, and then there's also policy, or from a policy standpoint, it would seem that Trump will be stronger for the economy and for the stock market than a Biden, more tax heavy, government heavy policy. But that almost doesn't even matter, because what really matters is, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Whatever people believe is ultimately what comes out, because it's people's actions that are making the difference. And if people believe that one of them is going to do something and they take actions as such, then that is what becomes our reality. So it's its own self-fulfilling prophecy. And what tends to happen, this happened last time too, there were a lot of people who just pushed the pause button at this juncture. Because keep in mind, dude, we're like 2 months and a week or something away from a presidential election. We're really on the heels of this election. And so right now, I think a lot of people might be pushing that pause button and just go, you know what, we're going to take a couple months and just see what happens here.
I think that's a very wise look at this. And what I think that's going to do is, there is always this natural group of buyers that are jumping into the market because they get older, they get married, they start having kids, they want to build a home, those types of things. I think a lot of those buyers may sit and wait, and all it's going to do is get this, what we call pent up demand, that all this demand is going to be sitting on the sideline. And hopefully there's inventory as well. I mean, to your point, you talked about a few sellers that feel like, hey, COVID related, I want to wait before we do all this. This could be the perfect storm where what we see, I mean, you talk about bring your armor. I think there's going to be a lot of activity. Today I met with 3 different high producing agents in North County, a title officer, a lender. All of them said this was the busiest that they had ever been, ever. And many people that have been in the business for decades. I suspect that there will be some kind of slowing as we get, and I think you're right, that there'll be a little bit of a pause. And then once there is a normalization to it, once people go 30, 60, 90 days tops and go, okay, my life needs to continue on. I still want to create a home for myself. They will jump in. And I think that what's happening in our market so much is the owner occupied, the primary residence buyer, the buyer that's buying a home and is going to live in it for a long extended period of time. Absolutely, value is important to them, but it's moving down the list a little bit, that they feel like this is the market. The market is 7 offers on a property in Lakeside. And so we want in, we want to get a home. And I hope nothing changes, but it's not worth waiting, to your point. If the year over year properties are going up 6% in San Diego County as a whole, well, 6% of 750, that means that 750 house, if you wait a year, is now almost 800,000. And nobody's saying, I'm not predicting that we've got another 6%. I don't know, maybe I am predicting that there's another 6% increase. But you get penalized for waiting too long. And then you get to a point where you feel like, I should have made the move 2 years ago. So that was when I really should have bought. So let me get prices back down to then and then you get stagnant.
You never get there. So it's also nice about prices going up, those for people who are refinancing. That's one of the things that's really chugging things along right now, because you're looking to get an appraisal on your home, that you bought with 10% down, and now you can drop the mortgage insurance and get a lower interest rate. So, values going up has caused a lot of things to go positively for people who are refinancing. Rates go down, values go up. Oh, perfect storm for a refinance scenario. We've been doing a lot more refinances than I normally do. I probably have more refinances now that I'm working on than I do purchases, which is a very rare.
You've been doing a lot of purchases. That's excellent.
Yeah. That's where we're focused on. We're trying to help, veterans buy homes. And it's been very difficult. It's very difficult when you're in a 5, 10, 20 offer situation to, have the offer that is the best one in the listing agent's eyes and in the seller's eyes. If you're a VA, no money down offer, it's difficult to get all the way to the top there. even all this, the things we've been trying to do. So this market, while a lot of people are having records and things like that and doing crazy stuff, guys like me are fighting the good fight. You know, we're in there, you know, throwing elbows and all kinds of stuff, sucker punches, whatever we can to try to, you know, get a win. And it's very difficult to do so, but we're also fighting the good fight, in my opinion. So I'll always continue to fight it. But, you know, that's just kind of the reality of where we are. So that's why I say, hey, grab your armor, means that, like, if you want to buy in this market, you have to be ready for a war. And a lot of people have to lose 2 or 3 battles, Steve, before they realize that. So I'm just trying to help people understand right off the bat, because a lot of times the first one you fall in love with is always the one that got away, you know? And so if people fall in love with that first house, and it's hard to top that sometimes. It does happen, but sometimes that's the one. And it's just like, man, you know, we don't want to let this one slip through, because they don't know yet that we're not going to find another one like that.
Right.
Especially in a market that's moving higher. Even if you do find a similar house a month or 2 later, it's probably $20 or $30 or $40,000 more. So it's, you know, it's just one of those things that I want to try to let people know, this is what's going on, whether you're using me or Steve or whoever, it doesn't matter. You know, if you're out there and you're trying to win in this market, I think this is information you need to know.
I love it. No, I mean, I completely agree with it. And it's to that point, we all have numerous stories of clients. I have one that they purchased earlier this year. Rates dropped, they refinanced, and then appraiser said the value's gone up 60,000. And that's on paper, but my opinion, nobody gets wealthy working their job. The way that you get wealthy is through investments, being wise in the stock market. And what I like about residential overall, and we have some wonderful opportunities here in California that in other parts of the country, in Missouri, probably looking at the values from the bottom to where we are now, I'm sure that there are some people that have made $80,000, maybe $120,000. That's not a market that I'm familiar with, but I mean, you tell me, Derrick, bottom to top, did a single family home go from 300,000 to 500,000, something like that?
Yeah, in some places.
In some places. So in some places they've seen $200,000 of growth. Meanwhile, here we've got bottom to top stuff like people buying at 800,000 and it being worth 1.7. I mean, growth of $900,000 just based on what's happening in the market. And I feel like if residential real estate, buying a home, as you have said numerous times, Derrick, if you buy a house and make your payment, no matter what else you do, and continue to make your payment, you will be on the road to financial independence when that is paid off, because you'll be sitting in an asset that is likely worth $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. Who knows what that market looks like even later on? Maybe those numbers are much higher, but we at least know that you don't have the nut of a rent payment, a house payment, anything like that.
I'll give you the exact quote, Steve. It is, if you do nothing else,
if you do
save money for your retirement, if you just buy a house and make the payment, that's all you have to do. Then you'll be okay. You can figure everything else out. If you don't have a mortgage payment, but you have a house to live in, you can figure the rest. You can figure food and insurance and stuff like that. You can figure that out no matter what's going on. But if you have to figure out a house payment when you see rents just going, and, you know, and top of all that other stuff, you may find yourself in a scenario where a lot of people have been, and they've had to leave the area because it's just simply too expensive. So speaking of areas that are too expensive or areas that are better than others, let's get to our third one here on the list, which is specifically in San Diego County. So we're gonna leave Riverside out of this.
Okay.
Where are the good investments, Steve? Are there bad investment areas? We're leaning on you here.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it depends on resale. And so when you look at resale, always look at who is the demographic of the next buyer, which typically I would say is you when you purchased. The community, I mean, so factors to take into consideration is commute. What's the access to freeways? What's the access to downtown? What's the access to what's the demographic of of buyers of community in your neighborhood? Is it families? Well, then if there's families that are in your neighborhood because schools, another big factor, then more than likely a 3-bedroom would be more advantageous than a 2-bedroom. So if you have the ability to purchase 3 bedrooms versus 2 bedrooms, absolutely, I would say buy 3 bedrooms.
All right, Steve, you're talking about bedrooms right now. I'm asking you about
You
areas. I want areas of San Diego County that are good investments
to
or
me,
bad investments.
To me, I look at it like emerging markets and discovered markets. Look at you, always putting me on the spot. I freaking love it.
You're trying to dance around my questions.
I always try. I'm practicing for when I get into politics. So emerging markets are markets that, in my opinion, have strong value, that have a lot of upside. There's a lot in North County, in my opinion. Oceanside is a community that the downtown area, the coastal area, is very strong and has had a lot of money pumped into it. Schools aren't great in Oceanside. However, to me, it's an emerging market because it's all of 5 miles, 2 miles to Carlsbad, where values are 10, 15% higher. I mean, sometimes these numbers are outrageous for the same house. It's the same weather, it's the same beach, it's the same everything except schools, and it's a different zip code, and the price is quite different.
Well, as the values go up in Oceanside, the schools should get better. Yeah, I mean, isn't that how it works? You know, the property values go up, the property tax money comes in higher, they improve the schools. Isn't that kind of the flow?
Absolutely, that's the flow. I grew up in Vista. My parents still live in Vista. San Marcos, when I was a kid, was very, very similar to Vista, which was rural communities, older homes built 1960s, 70s, schools that were average. Basically, what San Marcos decided to do as a city is they brought in some builders, and so they built out a bunch of stuff, and then they taxed the heck out of their community. So Melrose, these kinds of things. Now what we're beginning to see, and not only do we have schools in San Marcos that are 9s and 10s across the board, San Alejo was a community that was built, but because of that, we're starting to see prices compete with Carlsbad, where Vista doesn't compete with Carlsbad in most areas. In pricing. So North County, I really like for emerging markets. I like Oceanside. I like Vista. There's some one-offs. There's some outliers. I think Fallbrook has some very interesting pieces, but I would say for me, Fallbrook is not as good as an investment as Escondido, which tends to be closer and has a little bit different of a demographic, simply because Fallbrook has more
country life,
more country life, and I would say the typical buyer is not looking for. And we started this segment talking about the move to larger lots, more, I don't want to say off the grid, but there's a little bit more maintenance that's required for that. And the next demographic, which I guess I can include myself in millennials, to unfairly characterize an entire group, I would say millennials as a whole don't like to do a whole bunch of work. And so dealing with a septic tank, in the very rural communities, dealing with a well, maintaining property, that's a significant amount of property, that's acreage. I think you limit the slice of pie that who your potential buyer is. As we move south, honestly, East County is really coming along. We made some fun of Lakeside, but Santee, Lakeside,
Santee, it's crushing.
Those communities, there's a lot of new construction that's going on there. The schooling is good and is getting better. I think there's some real opportunity that's out there. That coastal will always be a desirable community.
Let me take a minute to agree with you on a couple things, because I know this makes your day, week, year, whatever. Oceanside, which I famously call this in 2013, Oceanside, the place where everyone should buy real estate. And the reason is because you're sort of landlocked north, right? You can only go so far. So as far as going north is concerned, that's the last frontier. So if people are coming south to look for better, prices and bigger homes for the same money, that's going to be the stop. Or if you're looking to go north, but same scenario, that's going to be the last stop. So it's sort of the last stand before you get up to San Clemente, and there's, a good distance there. So I've liked Oceanside for a long time, still like Oceanside. I think you're also right about Vista. Vista is something that, and down the road, 10 years from now, we'll all go, Vista, duh. Vista means views. And people like views. Oh, you mean you can have, you don't have the, let's say the coastal fog or whatever you want to call it, marine layer. You don't have that, but you have the views and you have the nice warmer weather, and you can get some of those sea breezes there. That's a very unique situation. So I think, Vista is one of those ones as well where you're going to notice that. I do think I want to call out a couple that I think are out of control. Well, first of all, let's just say Del Mar, not a good investment. Okay. Not a good investment. It's overpriced. It's overpriced. Everything's old. There's a roach problem. Steer clear. Okay. Now there's some really nice places there. I lived there for a long time. I love it. I visit there. I'm in Carmel Valley right now. I'm right down the road. I think this is a much better place to be. I think Carmel Valley is a much better investment. Newer homes. You have very close proximity to everything you need. The highway, the beach is right there. Just a more thought through community design.
More planned is really what you're talking about. Is that, schools, like the communities make sense. The schools make sense. They're located in appropriate places. The setup with access. I love Del Mar, but I agree that Del Mar is because Del Mar is one of those older cities when Del Mar first came around, Carmel Valley was just dirt. There wasn't any Carmel Valley there. And so then they had the time to plan it and to do it well. And what people don't like about Carmel Valley is the density. However, it's planned in such a way that I think it's a great investment. And it's one of those communities that I feel like has been discovered. That whole 56 corridor right off.
Oh yeah.
Everything from Forest Ranch, Del Sur, as you get further east and you get into Sabre Springs, those communities are all tremendously strong. And I like them because they match the access is very good, even though the 56 does get some traffic. Right now, we're going to start to see those things open up. The schooling is fantastic. It really is marvelous. And like Carmel Valley, it's another community. Those communities have been planned really, really well. I'm interested to see what happens in some of the more southern communities. We've started to see, obviously, the growth of Kensington and Hillcrests and North and South Parks, those kinds of things. But I'll be interested to see Normal Heights, City Heights, those communities that have in the past kind of had more trouble, we'll say, but have been surrounded by so much good. I feel like a lot of those surrounding communities will help to bring up value and bring new money into 100%. Those areas.
100% agree on that. I got one more good one too, that I really take a look at. If you have what I call a circumstantial advantage when you're buying your first home, especially, where let's say maybe you're not married, maybe you don't have kids, or something like that. You don't really need to worry about school districts too much. You don't have to worry too much about getting, doing soccer practices or doing a lot of those driving around type things. West Chula Vista, still sort of unfigured out, which makes no sense to me, considering how much money has been allocated to be invested down there at that harbor. West Chula Vista is a place that you should be looking if you want a really good investment long term. It's the only place in all of San Diego County where it is more expensive to be east, and that doesn't make sense, and that won't last forever. So West Chula Vista. Steve, you have another one?
I think that's great. I really do. And there's East Lake areas. There's so much. There has been so much good that has been brought in there. I completely agree. I think the West Chula Vista, I think that's the one to star and to certainly look at. There is, and I think here's my takeaway. Here's two guys that we like to think that we're a lot smarter than we really are, but we've been in the game for a little bit of time now. And we have identified, just in a simple conversation here, 5, 6, 7 good communities where we feel like are safe investments. I feel like that's the benefit of San Diego County, is that you've got, as we're talking about, with no traffic, 20 minutes is a little bit of an exaggeration, but you're almost 20 minutes to everywhere with no traffic.
Depends on how you drive, Steve. Old grandpas like you, just double that. That's 40 minutes driving your car with 700,000 miles on it. What's the minimum here, honey? Let's go. Oh, 55. All right.
Yeah, you don't know the truth.
Driving Tesla, brother. We get around. That's good. So is there any particular one, Steve, before I let you go, is there any particular areas that you think should be avoided that maybe are a little overcooked right here?
I think that just be aware, and what we're talking about here is the movement away from really urban environments. And the movement,
Downtown? Are you saying that? Can I decode this? Are you saying downtown?
I'm saying that downtown, that market is changing. And I would expect, for me, it's not a great investment right now for a couple of reasons. Number one is the maintenance on those buildings requires higher HOAs. And
True.
so a lot of those communities are starting to see, that HOA fee remain high. And I think it's possible that we're going to see, I think there's going to be some great opportunities for people to buy second homes. Now, I'm going to put in a caveat here, which is the newest construction. There's some buildings that I think are great investments downtown. There's some of the newer BOSA buildings. There's a few other buildings that there's a couple of the Marina District. I feel like that has a real strong, solid base to it. That it's not like people are going to be exiting the downtown areas. But East Village, in my opinion, is probably a community that I would stay away from more. We will get back to soon. We talk so much about buyer pent up demand. There's also vacation pent up demand. And a lot of people are itching to get out of the house. And when they do, San Diego is going to be a great destination point. So I would still expect that Convention Center will be strong, Gaslamp District will be strong, but just I'm not concerned about any significant change over there. But I just feel like if somebody is living in some of those further east, not walking distance to the downtown epicenter, I think that there's going to be a movement away from some of those buildings.
Yeah, man. It's one of those things that I have been, it's been on the tip of my tongue a few times that I'm not sure about downtown, especially the COVID impact, because let's be honest, who's the downtown buyer? It's single, younger professionals, people who like to party with 2 R's. It's people who, want to have a couple drinks every night and not have to drive, they want to have a nightlife. They want to go somewhere and see people and
second homes. I mean, these aren't all young people.
True.
But
very few second homes, though. If you could look at a comparison, because I lived down there for 6 years, and I can tell you the benefits were. I would walk to Basic, I'd walk to the corner, I'd walk to the Dragon's Den, I'd walk to the Tilted Kilt, I'd walk to Dirty Dells, and I had, I would walk to all these places and have a different dinner every night, or have this one on Tuesday and that one on Wednesday. And it was a cool lifestyle. You have a couple drinks and
your dating lifestyle, or is this your eating lifestyle? We're talking a little bit of this over here, a little bit of this over there, little...
No, I had a girlfriend, but the bottom line is, we were, it's a different market that we were in, at that time than what we're in right now, because this is, when we talk post-pandemic, means that everything's going to change. I mean, just look when you go into CVS, they have shields up, everywhere you're going to check out now, you're going to see that. There's going to be a shield up. Things are going to change. Restaurants have had to retrofit a lot of things, shields and stuff like that for germs and whatnot. And there's a whole slew of everything. So the whole idea of that concept, because when you buy downtown, you're really buying into a concept of walkable living, where you come home, you park your car in the garage, and it's done. And you can go wherever you need to. I walked to Ralph's and back from me. I lived in East Village. I walked to Ralph's and back a million times with groceries in my hands. And that was the cool thing about it. That stuff is all still there. The last couple of times I've been down there, it hasn't made me feel warm and fuzzy from a safe side. It seems like there's been some regression there. That's a bigger concern that I have, with them developing out the East County area, where some of the I don't want to say vagrants, some of the people who don't have a place, or maybe they do have a place to live, I don't know, but they're just on drugs or whatever. There's a lot of people there who are scary to most of us, especially, if you have kids and you're trying to go down there or go to a show. So, I hope that gets better, and I hope that places open up. But when you're closed for this long, what starts to happen is all those options you had Monday through Friday to walk the places, all those places are shutting down. So if those options go away, it's a lot less cool to live in a building that has a bunch of empty commercial spaces around it. And I think that there's going to be an impact to that. I think you're going to see it. We haven't really seen it to date, the market's been so strong that downtown has done pretty well. But I promise you this, I will bring someone on from downtown and talk to them about the downtown real estate market, and we'll see if they can change our minds.
I would love that, and I think that would be a great one for all of us to follow. Absolutely, let us know when that is.
Awesome. Steve Ploetz, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Mr. Wallet Man. Thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate your time, brother.
Hey,
Great to see you. Hey, share this video. Let's help make your friends smarter than everyone else when it comes to San Diego real estate. And ultimately, what is it about? Homeownership strategy. Take it easy, guys.